Hello, everybody. Welcome to Home Sweet Loan, the show where making mortgages, real estate, and home ownership a little bit easier to understand. I'm Christina DeMarinis. I'm your host, mortgage agent, and I'm here to have real conversations with industrial professionals, share practical advice, and help buyers and homeowners alike make more confident decisions. So let's get into it. Today's topic is all about pre approval mistakes that can cost buyers their home, honestly. I see this a lot, and one of the biggest mistakes that buyers can make is assuming that a pre approval means that they're fully approved to buy a home within that price range. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. A pre approval is incredibly important, do not get me wrong, but it is truly just the starting point. So when I pre approve a client, I'm looking at things like their income, their debt, their down payment, their overall affordability. That gives us a strong idea of what they may qualify for. But once they actually find a property, the lender is not just approving the buyer, they are also approving that property. So don't make that mistake. The pre-approval is about two things, you and the property. It's not one or the other, it's really both combined. And that's really where things can sometimes get complicated. Let's say your pre-approval for a purchase up to $800,000. You find a house you love, you offer them $775,000, and you think, perfect, I'm under my pre approval amount, so financing should be easy, right? No, not always the case. But then, the lender goes in and reviews the property. Maybe the appraisal comes in lower than the actual purchase price. Maybe the condo has an issue with the status certificate. Maybe the property is unusually zoned. We don't know these things until we know them, right? So, maybe even there's something about the conditions on the home that the lender doesn't necessarily like. Or maybe something has changed financially since the original pre-approval was completed. This is why I always tell buyers and the realtors I work with, a pre-approval is not the same thing as having a full-on mortgage approval. The specific property still matters, so keep that in mind always. Um, and that's also why financing conditions can be so important. And I always tell my realtors, make sure you have those financing conditions because we don't know what's going to pop up. So, in a super competitive market, buyers sometimes feel pressure to remove conditions to make their offer stronger. There may be like absolutely situations that this does make sense, but it should be a very, very calculated decision. Before one of my clients goes in firm, I want to understand, as much as possible about the property, their financing, their down payment, and the potential risks. So the goal is not to scare anybody away from buying. It's actually the opposite. I really want buyers to be able to make confident decisions and offers because they understand what is happening behind the scenes. And for realtors, this is where having a mortgage professional you can really quickly reach out to and trust becomes super, super valuable. So if you're writing an offer at 8 o'clock at night and something about the property or the financing doesn't quite make sense, I would much rather have that conversation before the offer goes firm, um, you know, rather than after. Sometimes a 5 minute phone call can uncover something super important. So sometimes everything looks completely fine and the buyer can move forward with more confidence. Either way, communication between the buyer, the realtor, and myself can make a huge difference. So, if you take one thing away from this episode, truly let it be a pre approval tells you a lot about the buyer's ability to qualify. Absolutely, it does. But it does not automatically guarantee that every property within the budget will be approved. So get approved, pre-approved early. Keep your mortgage professional, myself, involved while you're shopping and before making a major financing decision. Make sure everyone is on the same page. I'm Christina DeMarinis. This is Home Sweet Loan. And if you are a buyer with questions about getting pre-approved or a realtor who wants to talk through a financing scenario before submitting an offer, feel free to reach out. ChristinaDemarinis.ca. Let's have these conversations. Thanks for stopping in. Happy home sweet loan.